Welcome to Guns and Gear Network, everyone. I want to bring you this video this afternoon, and it's a little controversial topic at times, and it is the revolver versus the semi-automatic debate. And I wanted to give my opinion. Let me first say that is what it is, my opinion. My opinion is based on experience and exposure and life experiences and so forth that I've had over the years, 20 some years, over 20 years of being exposed to both platforms. I did a video called Buy This Gun, Not This One. You can go back and look at it. I kind of touched on some of this, but I thought this topic needed a dedicated video specifically about this. And like I said, I did touch a little bit on some of this in that other video, Buy This Gun, Not That Gun. So my experiences are based on, like I said, 20 some years of it. I started out with revolvers a very young age, and I was part of the transition in law enforcement. First started transitioning over from revolvers to semi-automatics. And so I've seen and trained with both, and I shot some competition with revolvers, even to include some cowboy action shooting, which uses single action revolvers. So some of the arguments on the semi-automatic versus revolvers situation is, some people say, hey, look, if your first pistol should be a revolver. If you've never been really exposed to firearms, first pistol should be revolvers. And here's my take on that. Yes and no. And because each situation's different, and I think each one deserves some looking at based on the criteria that somebody fits into. Let's say somebody approaches me in a class, on the street, whatever the case may be. And this actually happened the other day. Matter of fact, I was getting my hair cut, and my barber knows that I do some firearms instructing and into firearms and so forth. And the guy that was currently there getting their hair cut was talking about firearms, and he was talking about needing one and this, that, and the other. He said, well, hey, talk to this guy. He'll be able to help you out. So the issue that comes up, in my opinion, with which one you should buy is based on the amount of training you're willing to dedicate to become proficient with either platform. And the reason I say that, if somebody says, hey, look, I'm looking to buy my first firearm. I've done some shooting with a buddy of mine at the range recently, and I'm really liking firearms and really want to get into it and like to get some good training. What would you recommend as a first pistol? Then I'm going to go semi-automatic. Now, that same situation, but the situation goes like this. Hey, look, I know me and my wife need some kind of protection, but we're not really gun people. We don't really enjoy shooting. We don't want to, spend a ton of money on training and all that. We want to be safe, and would like to get some basic classes out of the way to make sure that we're safe and proficient at hitting targets, downrange. What do you recommend? Then my answer is going to be a revolver. The issue that comes up the most, in my opinion, and I ask this question a lot of people that carry semi-automatic pistols. And I said, one of the questions I asked, can you clear malfunctions? And that was one of the questions I asked the guy in the barbershop, and he said, what if it jams? And I said, yes. He said, probably not. I said, so you couldn't clear it within 2 to 5 seconds, be back in the fight if you needed to be? He said, probably not, to be honest with you. Could he train to that? Absolutely. Is he willing to train to that level? Then that's another question that he'll have to answer. And at the time, he was older fella. I think he was in his late 70s, early 80s, and he said, I'm not going to do that. Then I said, you need a revolver. So it's not just about the revolvers more reliable. You hear that a lot. Yes, I think they can be more reliable, but then you'll hear the argument, if you had a primer back out, or whatever the case may be, it'll lock the gun up, this, that, and the other. Look, I've shot personally thousands of rounds through a revolver. I've witnessed probably millions of rounds shot through revolvers over the years, between qualifying and range time and competition and so forth. I may have seen one or two primers either back out or come completely out or something like that. You just don't see a lot of, I just didn't see a lot of malfunctions, if you will, with a revolver. Occasionally you'll get light strikes, like primer strikes or bad ammo or something, but you can have that with a semi-automatic. The difference between, let's just use that as the example, you have a failure to fire. With a revolver, you just keep pulling the trigger on a double action revolver. Hopefully the next round goes off. With a semi-automatic, you've now got to clear that. You also have, besides failure to fire, failure to feeds. That can be an issue with a semi-automatic. You have stovepipes that can be an issue. You can also have double feeds. And if somebody doesn't know how to assess and be able to clear those malfunctions just as proficient as clearing a holster, getting on target, putting down rounds down range accurately, and they can't do all that together, then there's an issue. The other issue comes into maintenance. Somebody is going to have to dedicate a little time and effort to understand how to maintain a semi-automatic to a revolver. Use my wife as the example. I might could show her how to disassemble and clean a semi-automatic. Would she remember it every time? Probably not. 6 months later, whatever she decides to look. With a revolver, you can show someone how to clean one of those. It's almost hard to forget how to clean a revolver. They're so simplistic in the way they function, and you can check. The other thing too is you can check and see if a revolver is loaded or unloaded fairly easy. Obviously, you can look around the edge on this particular pistol, around the edge of the cylinder. You can see if there's rounds in it. You can show people what to look for. In a semi-automatic, there's a little more to it to figure out if it's loaded. And some people that are not proficient, and I know they're like, how can that happen? Happens all the time. I mean, you see even law enforcement officers that have quote-unquote training have negligent discharges from a semi-automatic because they thought it was unloaded. Glock being probably the worst one because of the disassembly procedure of having to pull the trigger to the rear to disassemble it. They drop the magazine. Of course, we know the famous videos that are on YouTube of guys that were experts that had negligent discharges. So obviously a revolver, it's much easier to see if a gun is loaded or unloaded. It is easier for people to maintain in cleaning, and it also is again, nothing is 100% foolproof, but obviously this firearm has been status checked. It is empty. If I go like that and it does not go bang, it's easy to train somebody. Pull the trigger again, pull the trigger again, pull the trigger again. Pretty simple. When you get into semi-automatics, you have a different issue with all that. You can't simply just pull the trigger again. So there's a lot more to it with the manual of arms compared to the two. So anytime somebody's going to carry a revolver, I always recommend speed loaders. Learn how to use them, learn how to be proficient with them. Same thing, you should always carry an extra set, just like with a semi-automatic. If you're going to carry a semi-automatic pistol, you always carry a spare magazine on your person, not in your car, glove box, center console, that kind of thing. Always on your person. Probably 90%, 95% of malfunctions in a semi-automatic is going to be magazine related, so you can need one of these extra at all times. So again, that's just like I see people all the time carrying a semi-automatic, and we'll ask them, where they keep their spare magazine, and they say at home or in my glove box or something like that. They don't even have one on their person. Again, this comes back to training and just people not understanding and knowing. But that's kind of my take with the revolver versus semi-automatic. It really depends on the circumstances and the criteria for each person. It's going to be different. It's going to vary. That's why people that swear by one or the other is foolish, in my opinion. The idea that you're going to talk people into dedicating enough time and effort to train to be proficient at all things semi-automatic is just foolish. Probably, I'm going to just guess, and this is a true guess. I have no clue exactly, but just based on my what I read and research and hear and so forth, if I had to guess, 60% of all people that own semi-automatics cannot clear all those malfunctions, maybe even higher number than that, proficiently in a gunfight. Under stress, all those things. They may not even do it in no stress at a range. See it all the time in law enforcement circles or whatever. On the firing line, the old hand goes up. Excuse me, over here. They can't figure out what's wrong with their pistol. Instead of trying to clear it immediately and get back into the qualification round or whatever they're doing. They want to raise that hand. Well, guess what? In a gunfight, they're not going to be able to raise that hand. That's where I think there's some discrepancies and some deficiencies in some law enforcement circles and other circles, for that matter, with trainers. That as soon as a malfunction happens, they want you to keep the gun down range and raise your hand. They should teach you how to assess and fix it in the middle of that range session. Then raise the hand if you can't get past it. Obviously, a competent instructor is going to see that there's an issue and start walking that way and see what's going on. The key there is safety. Keeping the gun down range. So it doesn't matter what you do with that pistol as far as trying to clear the malfunction if you're doing it in a safe manner. So anyway, I'll digress on that topic. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to bring you this topic about revolvers versus semi-automatics. There's no one size fits all when it comes to firearms, in my opinion. I even talked briefly in that other video about the usage of a .22 and where it does have its place with certain people as a potential self-defense firearm. And I talk about that in that video if you want to go over there and look at that. So again, no one size fits all, and it's just a matter of each person and their abilities and their knowledge and willing to gather that knowledge and train and so forth. So anyway, guys, I wouldn't, me personally, if I'm walking out the door getting ready to leave, I'm grabbing a semi-automatic every time. Would I turn down? I carried a revolver for years and years and years and years. I still know how to use them, but obviously I prefer the semi-automatic for the reasons I talked about. But again, if I'm going to leave a firearm available for her, I'm not leaving the semi-automatic, I'm leaving the revolver because it fits her circumstances better. So that's why I say, somebody's going to leave me one gun or let me take one gun with me, I'm taking this. If I have to help somebody make a decision, like my wife, I'm leaving this. She's just not a firearm person to go out. She appreciates firearms and willing to be safe and proficient as far as putting rounds down range and all that, but she's just not willing to go through the dedication and effort where myself or her feels comfortable with her utilizing a semi-automatic for self-defense for those reasons. And that's the way it is, and that's the way it is with a lot of people. So anyway, again, guys, that's kind of this video in a nutshell. As far as, like I said, no one size fits all. You have to figure out the criteria based on your situation and the one you're maybe helping somebody make a selection of. So anyway, guys, if you have any experience, again, I know this is a little controversial topic, and you're more than welcome to chime in your thoughts. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you tuning in today. If you have any questions, post those below. As always, like, share, and subscribe. We'll be bringing you another video here in the near future. Have a good day, guys.